to. I mean, kids are going to be kids, and they're going to respond to certain things certain ways. Now, they're going to be, there's going to be different intelligence levels and so forth, but kids are kids for the most part. So if there's data-driven research, I wonder why we don't, public education, why, or even just education in general, why we don't model some of those successful academic countries out there.
Like you said before, politics.
One of the things when it comes to actually, believe it or not, this is what I was learning, and I was actually surprised when I saw this. 25% of the United States is involved with education in one way or another, whether it be students or working for the system. 25%, which is large. Here's another startling fact that I realized after reading a little bit. They talked about how, compared to all the other countries, and on average, like per capita students or citizen versus other citizens around the world, the United States had the highest level of education. Now, I'm not saying it's the best public system, best education system in the world. I'm just saying, like, per capita, like, per citizen, you know, they had the highest level. Like, each person may have like a 7th grade reading level, as opposed to like another country may have like a 6th grade reading level. So that was startling. So overall, people are getting educated, but to what degree? You know, I know that I had a conversation with a close friend of mine when it came to like certain countries out there. I'm not going to say what country, but certain countries out there that you have this perception, especially in the U.S., you have this perception of this country, and they're all smart, and they're all gifted, and they're all go to medical school or become lawyers and so forth, and they go, man, that culture really has their thing going on. Well, the biggest point that this guy made was that what you're not seeing is what's in the country. You're only seeing what's getting here. And a lot of the people that get here are educated and they have money. That's why they get here. So I can tell you, like, when it comes to Mexicans, which is what I am, when it comes to Mexicans, the kind of Mexicans that you're getting, and not all, because I'm not stereotyping my own culture, but the kind of Mexicans that are coming to the United States are workers. They're workers. They come to the U.S., at least the parents come to the U.S. to work. So they have a working mentality. And a lot of the students, a lot of the Mexican students don't do as well because their parents are not pushing them to do as well. Or they don't, it's hard for them to conceive. If you only got a 2nd grade education, it would be hard for you to understand what the value of education is. Of course, there's a flip side of that where there's parents that do, but for the most part, the type of Mexicans that are coming to the U.S. are the ones that are here to work, and then they bring their kids, and when their kids get old enough, they want their kids to work with them or for them. So it's a completely different mentality. The educated Mexicans are the ones that have certain careers. They stay there because they have a good life. Yes?
Yeah, you went over accountability and teaching for tests versus sharing of knowledge. Are you happy with the balance that there is now, or do you think there should be a shift in any direction versus investing in like arts programs or music programs or investing in the core curriculum that gets people through tests?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. As an elective teacher, I'm biased. I'm biased, but for a good reason, you know. Like, I'm big on health. Well, it's great. We have kids. Let's say the United States education is great. You know, like it gets better and better and continues with high stakes testing. Well, you can have all these kids that can read and can read well, but they're going to have all these problems, heart conditions and diabetes and so forth, because they don't exercise. If you take away something like physical education, which they only get, like, kids get like maybe 2 hours a week, you know, what's going to happen to them as far as health? And it's already, you know, it's pretty known fact that, or I don't know, it's a pretty known statistic that the United States is by far one of the most obese countries in the world. You know, and we talk about, another big hot topic is healthcare in the U.S. So we're spending all this money on healthcare, but we don't talk anything about like prevention or taking care of yourself before it happens. You know, if you never would have gotten, you know, these heart conditions if you would have, you know, exercised an hour a day instead of 2 hours a week. So as far as like to answer your question, I think that we're moving away from the whole person, you know, and we're focusing more on numbers. actually more numbers. And the whole point of education, public education, from the beginning, our forefathers, was let's teach these people how to read and write so that they can vote and have a good opinion when it comes to voting. That was the main point of education. If you go back to, let's educate our citizens so they can have a voice. Yeah.
I had a pretty even balance of private and public education all the way from elementary up through college. And the numbers thing was my biggest deal with my public education. I always felt like I was a part of a business instead of being taught something. It's like, you gotta get that 85, you gotta get that 90, we gotta bring the percentage up. And that's all it was just like drills all day. But then the private education was much more hands-on, much more of the arts, traditional style education. But so I don't know. It was interesting. But Texas really got into that tax system that, just like you said, producing that numbers.
Texas, which is where Bush comes from. They were really the forefront. They were the forefront.
Headlong into it.
Like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they were the forefront, and they made a lot of monumental decisions. And it's just going to continue to change. And people, a lot of people, like adults, they may seem like they don't care, but the truth is that we're all having kids, and our kids are going to be growing up. And these decisions that we make, whether we agree or not, a lot of things that I hear is budget cuts. Budget cuts when it comes to education, and they're always cutting different areas. Well, here's another startling research fact that I saw is states spend more money on one prisoner. Prison system. The prison system spends more money, or the state spends more money on the prison system than they do on the education system. So they will spend more money for one prisoner per year than they would on a student. And there's a huge fact out there that says that the percentage of students, the percentage of prisoners, people in prison, are the ones that don't have education. So we're a little backwards in society. Just like I said with the healthcare, we spend money on the drugs as opposed to the prevention. Well, that's the same exact concept when it comes to prisons and public education, or education in general. And I've had a lot of experience with different private institutions, and of course there's some great pros and cons to it. But like you said, the private schools are still on the whole student concept, and I think they're doing pretty good when it comes to going to upper level education. Any other questions?
I know for me, I also did both public and private, and the biggest factor wasn't really so much the education, but was more of my safety. My parents yanked me right out of public school in LA systems just to put me in private school, so they knew I'd come home from school.
Yeah, wow. I don't know very much when it comes to LA education system. I know that there was a lot of bills passed and laws and so forth when it came to segregation and so forth in LA. Or California in general. But I can tell you that here's another thing in our district that's new and big is we have, I think, 40 different cameras in each school, and these are live cameras and they're all recorded. And I don't know if they ever get rid of the video and so forth. So and our school, the school that I'm at, is literally like a fort. I mean, you can't get in or there's one way to get in or out. And all the gates are locked and so forth. So I mean, you could be some kind of vigilante and climb through and so forth. But for the most part, it's pretty hard to get into that school. And I come from a small community, so when someone doesn't belong, which is pretty quickly recognized when it comes to a small community, then they're identified and so forth. So when it comes to the biggest thing that they talk about, and me as a teacher, and actually even the classes that I teach, is the first thing when it comes to education is safety. That's what they talk about. So like I said, I can't speak very much for California, but that's one of the things, and negligence. So if something were to happen, I know that there's some laws within, if you're a certain distance from a school or something like that. Anyway, anything else? Any questions? No? Okay, I think that's got to be 10 minutes.
We're at 1946.
Oh my God.
Good job, Bernie.
Thank you.